Yes, it is I. You probably don't recognize me with my haircut. Welcome to Politics After Dark. I'm Mike O'Connell, publisher of Binghamton Review and your host. Stay tuned for a half hour of politics, humor, and a few surprises, sometimes even for me. Politics After Dark is a look at political issues and questions, local, national, and on campus of Binghamton University. Coming to you today from Recreation Park on the west side of Binghamton. Politics After Dark comes to you Tuesday nights at 8:30 right here on Channel 6. It is written by Mike O'Connell, directed by Mike O'Connell, produced by Mike O'Connell, and starring Mike O'Connell. We're in the park today on the west side of Binghamton proper, which is located in what you know, of course, as Greater Binghamton. Recreation Park, one of my favorite places in the world, and I hope it is yours too. And today, of course, is the first day of June. June has sort of a special place in my heart. I like to say that the month of June is my favorite month out of context. There's some exciting things happening in June that sort of makes sense, as I said, out of context. That if I had to repeat one month over and over again, I would keep repeating the month of June. Now, my favorite month in a natural progression, I guess, would be October. Got the World Series, college football season in full swing, election season certainly in full swing, changing of the leaves, what we call sweater weather or World Series weather happens in October. That, I said, that makes sense in context, but out of context, June is by far the coolest month. And of course my birthday is in June too. That's why I like the month of June. I've got a birthday coming up in a couple days. I will soon be 22 years of age. So, you know, if I had known I was going to live this long, I'd have taken better care of myself. But here we are today, hanging out in the park. Much as I dislike public resources, paying for public projects, I always think of it as I'm paying for this. I paid for this park. I pay for the upkeep of this park. No matter how the city got it, I think the land was donated by the Johnson family. But I still pay for the maintenance of this park. To my mind, it is an excusable use of government resources because it is at least decentralized. That to the greatest degree possible, we have only the citizens of Binghamton pay for this park. Now, to the degree that that doesn't happen, and I know it doesn't, there's been some projects here funded with state and federal dollars. I'd say that is not an efficient use of public resources because those in other parts of the state or other parts of the country, it's not that they don't have the opportunity to monitor this, or not that they, I gave away the answer. It's not that they don't have the opportunity to enjoy this park. They can. They don't have as much of a chance to monitor what goes on in this park and monitor how their dollars are spent. Whereas we in the city of Binghamton have a much closer view of what goes on here. That's how we justify public projects. I'd say that any use of public resources is necessarily bad, but it becomes less bad when we use those monies or collect those monies over a smaller and smaller area and use them over a smaller and smaller area as well. That's how we justify a great expense like this. The city of Binghamton has something like 33 municipal parks. And I have to say, not just because I'm a West Sider, but because I'm sort of an aficionado of parks, oh, this is the best. No question, Recreation Park, or Beethoven Street Park, as my friends at SUNY call it. This is the finest park the city of Binghamton finest park in Broome County, no question. And as I said, one of my favorite places in the world. It was on this bench 4 years ago. It was June of 2000. I was coming to the close of my high school career, and I was reading the play Death of a Salesman by Arthur Miller. Great American play by a great American playwright, not just because he was married to Marilyn Monroe. No, it's a great story of Americana, really. It's more the story of the salesman, Willie Loman. It's more the story of his son, Biff, his family. But I don't want to give too much of that away in case you ever read it. But I was sitting right here on this bench when I finished reading that story. Exciting time in my life as I was coming to the close of my high school career, as I said. I turned 18. I just came back from a class trip to Florida. We went to Disney World. Joined another band. As I said, I finished reading Death of a Salesman. Final day of high school was Monday. It was Monday, June 12th, 2000. Now, for many months, if not a few years, that day, that final day of high school, June 12th, 2000, was one of my favorite days, if not my favorite day of all time. I could say that that was the best day of my life. Now, since then, the past 4 years, almost 4 years, that day has been eclipsed several times. So that now that day is probably my, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th best day. It's no longer the best day of my life. And the nice thing about continuing to live here on Earth is that we keep having better days and better days. So that, when I was 10 years old talking about the best day of my life, I mean, that's way down the line now. That's probably, 300 or 400 down the line. So, our discussion for today is, of course, is why we enjoy life living here in Binghamton, and from a public perspective, how government, the role that government plays, in most cases, quells that to some degree. That what we have in this world, the exception probably of this park, comes not from government, but from individual action. And buying, selling, and trading of goods and services. The goods and services we enjoy. It's both, I would say, convenient and really a godsend that we all have different talents in this world. We all have different desires in this world. And more than that, we value things differently. So that, to me, let's say, I don't know, a slice of pizza is worth less than, 86 cents, but to you, the slice of pizza is worth more. So we trade those. Or to me, product A or product B, which I cannot mention on non-commercial television, is worth more to me than the money is to you. So I acquire those products by giving you money. Money, as I said last week, is the great instrument of freedom, of Friedrich Hayek. And it's a means through which we express our demands as consumers who are free to choose products we buy and the things we enjoy. As I said, we all value things differently. And that's good because that allows us to trade. one of the arguments that Milton Friedman made against having a standard wage. It's the utopian's dream to say that, well, everyone should be making the same amount of money. For many reasons, that would not be a good system at all. And it's not that things would be more equitable. I don't think they would be. It's more than just, well, people wouldn't have the incentive to produce. It's that though we may value labor similarly, we value leisure differently. My time at the park may be more valuable than your time at the park. So the hours I spend not working, leisure, the absence of work, I put a different price on that than you do. So those hours we're not working, we can't quantify the same way that we quantify labor. Some people who value their time at the park, time at the beach, time doing any number of activities which we enjoy. One of the great things about living in the United States in 2004 is that I don't have to get up at dawn every morning, except the days when I'm doing a TV show, because I try to film very early in the morning so that I don't get the traffic walking around. I'm sort of secluded today, so I'm somewhat buffered by the street noise. I just got birds chirping around, but I think that adds something to the character of the program. But not on those days. I don't have to get up at the crack of dawn every morning. I don't have to work all day, hot and sweaty in the fields, tilling the soil or whatever I would be doing otherwise. Our methods of agriculture and our machinery have allowed me to do relatively simple tasks and benefit more from that than any of my ancestors in previous centuries. We hear my opponents on both sides. I hesitate to say left and right. I don't think anyone is really more right than I am. I'm always right. It's those who are, say, above me and below me. They're arguing top-down, really, as I've described before. It's not a matter of government intervention versus non-intervention. To most people, it's how we're going to manifest that intervention, how that intervention will manifest itself in public policy, how we'll harbor the forces of government properly to effect what we see as desirable results. I would say that most results from that system are undesirable, because one person necessarily ends up imposing his views on another. So I say we're arguing top-down rather than left-right. And I would say that my opponents, both top and bottom, have this strange idea that a few years down the line we're all just going to be flipping burgers at McDonald's or something, and we're all going to be making $6 an hour. We're all going to shop at Walmart or work at Walmart. That Walmart is this socialist enterprise that we all work there and shop there and we all make $6 an hour. Well, number one, that's not true at all. There's always going to be a demand for more exacting tasks than running a cash register or flipping burgers. Now, some of my friends on the bottom can see that. I would even go beyond that and say, look, we have a society in which you can live a pretty good life, and all you have to do is flip burgers for 30 hours a week. If you made that offer to your great-grandfather in 19th century Europe or 19th century America, he would take it in a heartbeat. This was a guy who was working 80 hours a week in a factory, now from the time he was 10 years old. He would love to have this standard of living, flipping burgers 30 hours a week. Now, I'm not sure that we'll necessarily be flipping burgers. We may be doing something entirely different. And this is where it becomes difficult for me to make this argument, because I don't know what that activity will be. I'll be doing something in super widget manufacture or the production of super widgets, and I have no idea what those widgets will be. 100 years ago, we could have been having this conversation, and I, as the clairvoyant Mike O'Connell, could have told you, well, 100 years from now, you won't have to worry about the manufacturing job you just lost or your farming job that you just lost, because most of you will be working with computers, production of computers, servicing computers. Well, what's a computer? Well, I say to the person in 1900, a computer, well, it's like a typewriter, but it's got a television screen on there. Well, what's a television? Well, a television, it has a picture, but it's sort of like a radio, but it has a picture. A radio? You mean those things that very wealthy people have, and don't even work very well? And I would say, no. But by the time that you're older and your children have grown, the radios will be very accessible and very inexpensive, and will be better than the ones that exist now. You'll look at me as though I had 5 heads. So you're probably looking at me now, saying that, Mike, what are you talking about? We're going to have new products in the year 2050, 2080, 2100. Even 5 years from now, we're going to have products that nobody has any idea what they look like now. I mean, if 10 years ago I had told you about, or maybe 15 years ago, I had told you about this thing called the internet, that we'd all be connected, or that basically every single person would have his own portable telephone. Every single person would carry around a telephone with him. It looked at me as though I were crazy. Most people think of me as crazy anyway, but everyone would look at me as though I were crazy if I made a statement such as that. But here we are, 10 or 15 years later, and it's true. So, I do not fear the actions of free markets, as many people do. It's not government decree which made radios more accessible, or made televisions better, or invented computers, despite what Al Gore might tell you. The internet was developed by private, whiz-kid computer guys, the geeks, we used to call them back in high school. I was one of them, but I wasn't in on the computer craze. A lot of people look at me and assume I know something about computers or technology. I really don't. I mean, I look like a geek, but I really know nothing about computers. My knowledge of technology consists mostly of turn on the camera, walk around the front of it, talk for half an hour, see how I'm doing on time. I've got about 10 more minutes left. I apologize again for not having a clock. They don't put any clocks anywhere here in the park, so you'll see me look at my watch a few more times on the program. I hope you don't mind. Once again, you are watching Politics After Dark. My name is Mike O'Connell, coming to you today from Recreation Park on the west side of Binghamton. Hanging out here, talking about finer things in life, what we enjoy, things which do not come from government, but from individual action. You can join me Tuesday nights at 8:30, right here on Channel 6. So it was not government decree that invented the computer, and it will not be government decree that takes care of any of the other projects that we enjoy in the future, creates any of the products or the goods and services that we consume in the future. Speaking of Friedrich Hayek, Hayek wrote an essay one site. Now I've forgotten the name of the book, but a chapter of the book is called "Why I Am Not a Conservative." And to Hayek, who is Austrian, conservative means something a little bit different to him. In the European context, conservative means, I mean, those who favored the monarchy, that that really doesn't compute in the American framework. So the terms liberal and conservative mean something a little bit different on the continent than they do here. But after Hayek came to the United States, he was teaching at the University of Chicago, as were all the great economists of the time. He maintained that he was not a conservative, and he was not what was then known, in say the 1960s, or from the New Deal onwards, what was then known as liberal, which differs from the European notions of liberalism, which is what we're now, I guess, calling libertarianism. People of my ilk and political persuasion. That the Hayek, he starts to recognize that governmentarian bias, that he says he's not a conservative. I would say because I'm not looking for government to intervene in social matters. He would say that unlike many of his critics, he does not favor the use of government to, in effect, contradict what occurs in free markets. For example, I, of course, don't like any of this newfangled pop music, as I'm sure you don't either. But clearly it is popular, and there's really not a whole lot I can do about it to stop this force. The kid singers we see out there today certainly have found a market, and more power to them. But there's really nothing I can do to stop people from buying their CDs, much as I would not like it. Let's say you're stereotypical conservative. The pejorative term is fascist, but polite euphemism would be conservative. Would, let's say, try to use the power of government to censor what they find as salacious lyrics on a music CD, say, for example. And I would say simply that those things step into line is simply in free markets. We do not need the power of government to affect those changes. That I have, as a consumer, the right to purchase or not purchase those products. What we're not purchasing, I feel, is just as important as what we are purchasing, because they're both ways to express our views. And music out now will be popular for a few months, maybe a couple of years, and it will drop off the face of the earth. Once again, we'll still have Beethoven, still have Mozart, still have Sinatra, still have Charlie Parker. But much as I find Jessica Simpson or Britney Spears attractive, we will not be listening to their music. Other rap or hip-hop artists who push envelopes with free speech, and I mean, more power to them. I don't think we'll be listening to their music 5 or 10 years from now, though they may be popular for a time. Those things which are the purview of individuals are much more likely to express individual demands and desires than are those of this collective force we know as government. That regardless of the good intentions of government, of any government, we're bound to have less efficient and less effective public policy than we would if we left decisions to individuals. Milton Friedman once said that the harm done by concentration of power in government is not rendered harmless by the good intentions of those who wield it. And I'm sure every politician in the world has the best intentions. But we find that what we believed would work hasn't always. And I think mostly that's because we have ignored individual demands. And we find, happily, that what appeals to us philosophically, that we allow individuals to run their own lives as they see fit, that appeals to us philosophically, we also find that that is a more effective means to good public policy. And that's something for you to think about these next 167 and a half hours, as I remind you that you have been listening to Politics After Dark. My name is Mike O'Connell, hanging out today in Recreation Park on the west side of Binghamton, continuing my west side tour. Last week we were at the Pine Lounge, today we're at Recreation Park. I guess next week we might be back at my house, but there are a lot of great things here in the city of Binghamton. The city that you and I know and love. You'll hear me criticize this city quite often. And some people would say to me, why don't you just leave? And I have no doubt that my educational or vocational prospects are better elsewhere, as I'm sure they are for you. And it's not that I want to leave this community. I don't criticize because I want to leave. I criticize because I want to stay, because I love this community. Various things in it. And the month of June always reminds me of those things. It's graduation time. When I left Binghamton High School, I thought to myself that I'm never going to find such a concentration of attractive women in one place ever again. And that has been true. That has been true, actually. But I have found other things to do with my time, such as running this television program, which everyone watches. I'm happy to say I do not shy from controversy, and I don't mind that my opinions are not accepted by everyone, that they're not politically popular. I know I made some controversial statements last week, maybe I did again tonight, but I don't base my philosophical decisions on matters of practical politics. That's what politicians do, not I. Some people assume, well, my opponents and people who I sometimes consider my friends tell me that, Mike, you're probably better off just playing the piano every week on your show. Well, we're going to have music sometimes on the show, but mostly it's going to be of a political nature, because one of my favorite things in the world is expressing my views. That's what I do every week here on Politics After Dark, Tuesday nights at 8:30 right here on Channel 6. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the show. I've enjoyed it more than you possibly could imagine. These next 167 and a half hours, please take care of yourself and take no responsibility for whatever happens to you. Good night.